So I promise you a full transfer roundup. Here is James Savundra. What's all this about? 2 transfer deadlines.
2 transfer deadlines, one fast approaching, June the 30th. It's a really significant day when it comes to Premier League clubs because it's the end of the financial year for these Premier League clubs, and this is the date by which they need to comply with the Premier League's profit and sustainability rules. We saw last season that Everton and Nottingham Forest fell foul of these rules and they were given points deductions. So clubs have up until June the 30th to fit within the constraints.
That's Sunday, right? That's
Sunday. So expect a lot of activity, a lot of transfer deals to be confirmed between now and then, because there are a number of Premier League clubs that face a points deduction if they don't fit within these rules. And this is why we've seen so much transfer activity, so many players being traded between the start of the transfer window on the 14th of June and what's fast approaching June the 30th.
And there's been quite a lot of talk, quite a few eyebrows raised about certain transfers. The Premier League have been in touch with all the clubs, yeah?
Yeah, so what's happened, there's been some swap deals that have taken place. They're cross-player transactions whereby rather than swap deals, they're treated as players moving in different directions but via separate deals. So, for instance, last week we saw Aston Villa sign Lewis Dobbin from Everton and Everton signed Tim Urabunum. Now, both fees were very similar, but due to a loophole in PSR rules, it meant that both teams were able to benefit from an accounting perspective. So the fee around £10 million for both players. Both clubs were then able to book £10 million as pure profit immediately, but that £10 million they spent on the player is able to be spread across the length of that contract, say 5 years. So the clubs were then able to profit for about £8 million. If you spread the transfer costs across 5 years, say a £10 million transfer fee works out as £2 million a year. So both clubs, despite the fact they spent the same amount of money, brought in the same amount of money, from an accounting perspective, they made around £8 million in profit. There's no suggestion that clubs are breaking the rules when it comes to this, but a number of clubs have reached out to the Premier League seeking clarification about these types of deals. And the Premier League responded. They've written to all 20 Premier League clubs, reminding them and explaining the rules around transfers and around fair market value as well. So they're reminding them that all transfers, all transactions are checked to ensure they are at fair market value, and there's an expectation that all clubs act in the utmost faith at all times when it comes to any transfer deal. They have the power to investigate if they feel any deal, any transfer fee is inflated, and they can act as well if they think that is the case. OK,
Leicester have had their problems with finance around transfers. What's the latest on Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall?
Yeah, talks ongoing now between Chelsea and Leicester around Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall. No formal offer has been lodged just yet, but Chelsea made contact yesterday. Now, we understand some of the discussions around a player potentially moving in the opposite direction from Chelsea to Leicester. Now, Leicester are amongst one of those clubs looking to trade a player or two before 30th of June to fit within the PSR rules. Brighton have also been very interested in Dewsbury-Hall. Leicester, in turn, have got their own interest in one of Brighton's players, Jakub Moder. So we wait to see what happens there. Chelsea seem most likely at this point to sign Dewsbury-Hall if he is to depart Leicester. Interestingly, worked with Enzo Maresca last season to great effect. He was their player of the season last year, featured over 40 times in the Championship. It helped guide them back to the Premier League the first time asking. So there is a chance they could be reunited, but a long way to go if this deal's to be done. OK, and they've got just over 48 hours to do it if they're going to do it before the end of Sunday. Everton, potentially one in, one out? Yeah, one out. We brought pictures earlier on this morning. Ben Godfrey arriving in Milan around a potential deal to Atlanta. He's due to have a medical there and finalise personal terms. They've agreed a deal worth around £10 million, rising above £10 million. He'd entered the final year of his contract after joining from Norwich in 2020 for £25 million. Made just 15 Premier League appearances last season. It's a huge opportunity for him. Atlanta won the Europa League last season. They'll play in the Champions League next season. In terms of incomings, we understand Everton are interested in a £16 million move for Hull City winger Jadon Philogene. So he started for Hull City last season. They came so close to reaching the playoffs. Scored 12 goals in the Championship last season. In England under-21 international. So that's a potential player coming in. But again, Ben Godfrey, we expect will be departing very soon, having arrived in Milan. Talk of a swap deal between West Ham and Southampton. This is an actual swap, is it? Yes, this is a really, really interesting deal. I mean, it's very complicated. It's very early stages. West Ham in talks Southampton around signing Kyle Walker-Peters from Southampton. Now, he's entered the final year of his contract. And in terms of going the other way, Flynn Downs could potentially be on the way back to Southampton. Last season on loan there, had a brilliant season for Saints as they reached the Premier League at the first time of asking. Crucially, a willingness from all parties to get both of these deals done.